Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. With me is our National Baseball expert, David Brown, and we are going to talk about the League Championship Series. So, Dave, how are you?
Andy, I'm excited that baseball, we're in the semi. Dios mío, we're in the semis, man. It's great.
I want to make some predictions about the NLCS. I think that if I had to guess, I would guess the Dodgers are going to win Game 1 9-0. And I think it'll be a mistake to start Kodai Senga because I just feel like he's going to walk the bases loaded in the first inning.
Well, people aren't going to hear this until well after this all has already happened, Andy.
Some people are going to think we recorded this after Game 1, and then I'm just saying things that actually happened and pretending like I predicted them.
Well, yeah, that's not like you.
I was shocked though when Brandon Nimmo got run over by that Cadillac in the outfield. I thought that only happened at the Angels Stadium, not at Dodger Stadium. It was nice to see the Queen and O.J. Simpson. Maybe I watched Naked Gun. Come to think of it,
right? Instead,
yeah. Reggie Jackson didn't try to.
Umpires had the one guy in a rundown. That was a bit beyond.
Reggie didn't try to kill anybody. No, okay. But yeah, it's funny that baseball didn't even give anybody a chance to get ready for the NLCS. They just started playing it immediately.
Right.
Like the game ended, the Dodgers still had champagne on them, and the Mets just walked in and said, "All right, let's go. We're starting." Rob told us we got to start playing right now. We got to get this over with. Like, okay.
Sometimes it seems like the wait is interminable, and then there's 1 hour later, let's go underway.
Did anybody? John Smoltz said something during Game 5, relatively early in Game 5 of Padres Dodgers that I thought would start it's fixed. Baseball's scripted.
Yeah. When
he said that they were talking about, he said, well, the Mets are going to fly to LA tomorrow. So, well, what if they're playing the Padres, John? Are they still flying to LA? Can't you fly to San Diego straight? Do you have to go through LA? I've been to that airport. It's pretty decent size.
Southwest considers San Diego's airport part of LA. When you're mapping out that's an option for them if you're going that way. So,
but I was very surprised. Obviously the Dodgers were maybe the best team in the National League for most of the season, but I was really surprised that the Padres just stopped scoring runs.
Well, we got a record in progress. I don't mean like a, like an Elvis record, but turn that down. But 33 or something innings in a row.
Yeah.
Scoreless. It's like a Team Hershiser going on.
24 of those were the last 24 innings of the Padres series.
Yes.
You're not going to win a lot of series if you don't score for the last 24 innings of the series. I think it might even be impossible to do that.
Yeah, that's like the one game recently that I didn't see that kind of started the Padres' downfall, where they got murdered in, was it game 3? Something like that. And it's, whoa, that was unexpected. And then just the Dodgers kind of dominated from there. We knew that they had a good bullpen, and it's a good thing because most of their starters are dead. So
yeah. Well, they got a good start in game 5 from Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I just like to say, I gotta say the whole thing too. Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
None of this Yoshi stuff. We go the full 9 yards.
And it sounds like they started him because they thought they were going to need to use him and Flaherty, and that Flaherty could get ready in the bullpen more efficiently than Yamamoto would.
Yeah.
And then Yamamoto's like, fuck it. You don't need Jack. You can save him. I'm just going to keep pitching. So.
Well, and then Flaherty did so well that it enabled in the championship series that it enabled, yes, it is enabling them to do a bullpen game. So,
yeah, and they, the Mets have been a plucky story. I mean, it's almost like the worst thing that could have happened to them was to have stopped playing,
right,
for a couple of days, and then have to get restarted again because they were on a roll, and they're not as good. They weren't as good as the Phillies, but they beat them. They're not as good as the Dodgers.
They do have a similar one-loss record going back a few months to the Dodgers, so it's not that different. But the Dodgers also haven't. They are sort of a work in progress as far as piecing together. It's weird how plucky the dominant coastal wealthy teams are. They're just trying to get through this, piecing things together with. I mean, they have a million resources, so it's not like the Brewers or the Tigers trying to piece something together. But they're definitely flawed teams.
Yeah,
like if we had a system where like a really good team from a few years ago could come and like through a time portal, I'd favor that time portal team over the Dodgers right now. But,
yeah, I'd be all for that. Can we bring the 2016 Cubs back? Can they play?
Good. Rizzo's fingers would be not broken. It'd be great.
Yeah, and they're plucky for different reasons. The Dodgers, because they, they did spend $1 billion in the offseason, but they only got 2 guys for that $1 billion. That's all I got them. It's Yamamoto and some guy named Show.
Well, they haven't spent a lot of that Shohei billion because he
That's
said,
right. It's all deferred.
Yes.
Yeah, you got $1 a year for 700 million years. It was a great, great deal for the Dodgers.
He might just live that long,
But then they've got pieces of their pitching staff that, nobody, I would guess that wouldn't Urias still be pitching for them if he hadn't done what he did. He had to be part of that plan. I'm sure Trevor Bauer by this point was not part of. I think they expected that to be short. Like they sent him a 3-year deal. I don't think they wanted him for more than 3. They got him for like a year, and did they even make it for a full year? I don't even remember.
Was it
And then they had everybody else get hurt, and but yeah, they still managed to go. And then the Mets, they basically tore it down last year and only kind of built it back this year. This was supposed to be like an in between year for them, and got on a roll, and now they're still playing. So
I found that to be a curious decision. I mean, it didn't end up hurting them, or hasn't yet. But yeah, Trevor Bauer about a little more than half a season. So, just to answer that red herring.
Well, Well,
yeah, I didn't. I understood why maybe they didn't go for some huge free agents, to especially on the back end, adding more salary. But it didn't seem to me like the Mets would, with a little work, they could get where they are. So,
Yeah.
Hooray for me, I guess. But
I don't know how.
Mentality.
I don't know how much of it is David Stearns basically saying, "Hey, hold off. We don't need to do this. We don't need to spend a bunch of money right now." Because I think you could easily convince Steve Cohen to just throw more money at it. And I think he will.
Yes. I think maybe that is what bugged me about it. It's like, you can't convince Steve Cohen to spend more.
Yeah. And then
if anybody, you would convince him.
And you can't even say, well, the reason, Stearns had this plan. He was going to get rid of their older, expensive pitchers and get prospects back. He wasn't there yet. He didn't take the job till after they got rid of both Verlander and Scherzer. So I don't know.
It's sort of, they bought into that swirling mess of mediocrity that all the other teams did, that you don't have to spend that much to compete. And they were right.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and then you've got the Dodgers, this, very top-heavy team that is trying to figure out if Tommy Edman and Kike Hernandez can play multiple positions at the same time, much less in the same game. Okay, Tommy, can you play short and center? What inning do you want me to switch? No, we want you to play them both at the same time. Oh, sure. Why not?
My heart's going to explode.
And I had a bone to pick with getting all excited about all of Kike's postseason home runs. What's he got, like 15 now? He hit 13 of them in that one game against the Cubs. So it's like, all right, big deal. He's got 2, and like the other, actually, no. He hit 5 for the Red Sox a couple of years ago. Was that right?
That's true.
I blacked out. I didn't remember that. Yeah, he's Mark Lemke with power, apparently. Like the postseason shows up, and all of a sudden Kike is like, oh, I'll get some hits now.
He's got like a crotch of steel, too. Did you see his celebration? Rather than
yes, that's right. That's disturbing. I don't like it. It's kids watch it. I don't need that.
Jose Canseco gave it his blessing on Twitter.
Of course he did.
He's the new sage.
Yeah.
New generation, man.
Jose. During game 1, oh God, I've blown the illusion. We've actually seen it. The Jesse Winker just running and stopping for no reason, and then starting again. It got me to immediately. I thought of Lonnie Smith, except obviously it's not as important a spot. And I don't know why, but then it made me look up the Jerry Dybzinski base running gaff. But this was good because I did find the first I saw it from both I got to hear Don Drysdale call it and Bob Costas call it, because you were 100% right.
Don Drysdale call. Oh, wow.
And I don't know who the other guy is. It had to be whoever it's not Hawk.
Yeah,
but
it would be.
It's pre-Hawk, right?
Hawk was more of the color man.
Okay, but there's another grumpy old person in the booth who I didn't recognize his name.
Oh,
or I didn't recognize his voice.
It might have been really weird.
Now, the Dybzinski thing is bad, but the guy who really screwed it up was Vance Law.
Yeah.
Because Vance could have just stayed at third and let him tag Jerry out. Because it wasn't the end of the inning.
Right.
Vance went then and got thrown out by 30 feet at home.
Right.
Jerry fucked it up, but Vance made it worse. So why doesn't
if Jim Leland gave him... I had a chance to ask Jim Leland about this play, and I didn't. Yeah. But maybe Jim Leland sent him. He said, go. Oh, shit. Smoke.
The other thing I enjoyed was then I got in down that rabbit hole, and I wanted to watch the Tito Landrum home run, and that's where I got Costas and Kubek for that, which is just later in the same game. And they're talking about why Britt Burns is still in the game. Yeah, as he's pitching, because it's the 10th, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Kubek basically says, well, the power is coming up right after Tito. So they're just Tony's just trying to get through Tito, and then he'll bring a fresh arm in, because Tito's not going to hurt you with a home run. And the next pitch, Tito hits the home run, and Kubek yells something like, well, he just showed me, or he yells something like that before the ball lands in the bleachers.
Nobody likes Bob Costas, and with lots of reason. But in those days, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And Kubek was great.
Yeah.
As his second. Now, they weren't anywhere near as good as Vin Scully. I didn't really like Joe Garagiola, but they weren't as good as Scully, but they were really good, mostly because of Kubek. They had great chemistry. Costas is gone into old man mode. But he was fine. He was better than fine. He was very good. I saw somebody complain, he's never been as good as Al Michaels. Well, that's not fair for a couple reasons. Of course, Al Michaels was better, but that doesn't mean that Costas wasn't good. He was very solid, and Kubek, as you illustrated, was terrific.
Yeah, he Costas. I thought he was a very good player. He's not, when he had to fill in for Marv in the NBA. Yeah. He's not, there was a big drop off from Marv, even though Bob got his start in the ABA with the St. Louis Spirits, whatever they were.
Marvin Barnes.
And I'm getting a no time machine. But I think I was talking with Tom Loxis about this last week, about how we grew up, or maybe it was Oleg. I don't know. There's too many. I got too many podcasts going on.
One of my old people.
It was either Oleg or I think it was probably Oleg, because we're almost exactly the same age. Talking about when we were kids, Costas and Kubek or Vin and Joe that was a big deal, because that was the one national game you could see, and you got one of those two crews. And up until 10 or 15 years ago, the rare opportunities you would hear Bob do baseball, I would get nostalgia. It would take me back to when I was a kid, just hearing the voice. And where he went off the rails as an announcer was, I think, during the steroid era, when he turned every broadcast into in the middle of it, he'd have a 20-minute tirade about steroids.
The sermon.
And we're like, okay, Bob, we've heard this. Can you just call the game, please? Can you just do the game? Because other than that, he was good. And then Mike Donahue and I don't remember this crap, found him doing, he did NFL on CBS one year before he went to NBC.
I've seen a video. Yes.
There was a Bears-Vikings game with Bob and Johnny Morris, and we broke that down, and it was fun. So he was a good football announcer too. He's obviously, there's a reason he's been around forever. He's a talented guy, but people got very tired of him in the Royals Yankees series. Mostly it was he's like, I got a million George Brett stories. I'm going to tell them all. I'm like, no, you're not.
You got 9 innings.
And when they go interview George for 5 minutes in the middle of a game and they come back, you don't get to tell 5 more George Brett stories. Everyone is we all like George, right? He seems like a great guy. With George, that's enough of George.
Should be a wrap.
He hit 3 homers against the Yankees in an LCS 44 years ago. We have talked about it enough. You can stop. You showed the highlights. That was great. And we need to move on. But then he also had he thought one of the Royals had a big clutch hit, but it was just this little loopy line drive to Anthony Volpe. And then the one I kind of understand, except he'd screwed up enough before that you were like, was when he thought he thought the Royals were changing pitchers in the middle of an at bat, when instead it had gotten to 3-1, and they signaled for the intentional walk.
Yes.
That's okay, Bob. It's okay, Grandpa. It's time to go back to the home. You did your due diligence. You got to do your job. We've got to go now.
And these faux pas would be, he doesn't do a lot of games, and maybe there's a reason for that. We would be a little more forgiving, or the people that don't like him wouldn't be quite as harsh if he wasn't just so much sermon on the mount about it.
Right. If he seemed more, kind of a regular guy, you wouldn't care. You'd kind of laugh it off. But instead,
he's like forcing himself to be a curmudgeon and doesn't give a shit. Who cares? It's, if he would just make his point. I mean, he can make his point however he wants, and then leave it, and then don't bring it up again, and then that would be fine too. So I'm not trying to limit Bob Costas' speech like some Scalia, but he overdoes it.
I met him once. He was very nice. It was at O'Hare. He was waiting for a plane. I was waiting for a plane. I walked by, I saw him, and I just said hi. And I had a Cub shirt on. It was the off day The Cubs had just won Game 5, and we're going back to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going wherever. And I was flying to, I had to go to Las Vegas for a convention. So that's where and he saw the shirt and he said hi. And he basically said, I think they're going to win now. And I said, yeah, I hope so too. And he's like, I think Cleveland needed to finish that off yesterday. And then he just kind of turned and that was it. But I was like, that was a cool little chat with Itra. He was right.
He was.
But up close, you can how old is he? 70s? He's older than you think because he always looks so young.
51, I want to say.
Yeah. So the hair dye not quite as natural in real life as it looks.
73. Bob Costas. 71 sounds right. All right. 51 sounds right. March 22nd, 1952, 72 years old.
Yeah. That looks good for 72. He's our Dick Clark.
Yes, right. Does that make Joe Davis like Ryan Seacrest?
Does Ryan yell all the time?
I'm just trying to wake Smoltz up.
I get on Joe because I feel like he's excited too much. That then when something genuinely exciting happens, he's already been excited. I think he's been very good in these playoffs. I think he's and then TBS now is on to their Brian Anderson, Jeff Francoeur, Ron Darling crew for the No More Bob.
I have no. I mean, it's not that I have no problems with them, but Brian Anderson is excited for baseball, and that comes through, and I like that. I actually think Jeff Francoeur says some good things. He doesn't say them well. He's kind of a oafish speaker. And Darling's delivery isn't the best either, but he's better on Mets games than he is on national games, but that's fine. Yeah, I've got lots more things to complain about than those guys.
Yeah, Francoeur, the thing I get a kick out of him, it's just very TBS. Yeah, that there's still an Atlanta guy that it's like, well, he does the Braves games, so we might as well just put him on our national team because it's like, you guys haven't done Braves games for 20 years. Why are you still picking guys who work in Atlanta?
It's some kind of Ted Turner rider. It's like, okay, you guys can broadcast these games, but you must take Francoeur. Why, Ted?
It is what it is.
I don't know, but you must.
The big news: the Yankees. Anthony Rizzo is on the ALCS roster. They are finally going to cram his hand into his glove and tell him to go get him. And I forgot Marcus Stroman's a Yankee, and he's on the ALCS roster.
Well, they had left him off the previous round.
Yeah, that's why I forgot.
There you go.
Yeah, that was like a big deal when he opted out of his Cub deal, and the Cubs were going to have all this money to spend, and they they didn't, but
they could have.
They could have.
Still do.
Actually, that may have been their Shota money. They may have been why they signed Shota instead of passing. So that turned out pretty good for them. But
I got a chance to cover the Yankees and and Royals a couple games in Kansas City. So I did see Rizzo, but it was not until they were popping champagne and winning the series. So I didn't really have a chance to say anything or whatever. So I did want to ask him if he was going to play, and I'm glad he is, or try to.
The roster graphic that the Yankees put up is very misleading. They broke the team down. They list all their pitchers, then they list their infielders. They only list 4 of them, and then their outfielders, and then their catchers. And I'm like, geez, how are they only have 4 infielders? And then under utility, they have Osvaldo Cabrera and they have Jazz Chisholm. I'm like, that's your third baseman. Why is he listed as utility? No, Birdie's listed with the infielders.
Okay.
Some intern, I think, threw that one together. But I'm looking at it like, boy, this seems risky if they've only got 4 infielders. One of them has a broken hand. I'm like, well, no, they have 6. Right. They don't have 4. They're fine.
I read the whole thing, Andy.
Yeah. That's true. They rewarded me by reading to the end. Like, oh, okay. I guess this makes sense now.
I was real impressed with Birdie playing first base. He made 2 really nice plays. Yeah. And, hey, get a guy away from the Marlins, and he does well. So
Well, Costas attributed that to TBS because they had the film ready. Birdie had been a goalie all through, and so they felt like playing first is basically like being a goalie. Just keep the ball out of the dugout. That's your whole goal. Whatever you do, if there's a throw, make sure it doesn't end up in that huge net behind you.
Yes.
Just try to catch it.
Eloy ends up in the net, not the ball.
Yeah, it is interesting. First, there's obviously first base is its own skill set, but you would think that if you're a good defender at other positions, especially in the infield, you ought to be able to take to first pretty quickly.
I have that same feeling. And then I wonder, well, am I selling it short or being foolish or whatever? But yeah, that is some not common sense, but conventional wisdom.
I think the mechanics of it are relatively simple. It was my favorite position to play, but I ended up having to play third base all the time, which I hated because you had to play in real close, and I always felt like I was going to take a ball off the forehead. But the biggest thing you have to decide, you see it was Michael Bush's. The thing that took him the longest with the Cubs was on a ground ball to your right. How far do you go? Yeah. How far do you go so you're not getting in the second baseman's way? Or also, how far are you going that if you don't get it, you can still get back to the bag in time for the throw? But the rest of it, obviously there's some footwork stuff about making sure you're on the bag in the right spot. But the rest of it's pretty easy. That's why, in the old days, the big fat guy played first. We'll put Boog Powell over there. It'll be fine. What's there to do?
He's got a grill going on over by the first base coach's box.
That's right. That's an error on the fielder, but not on the first baseman because he wasn't there. He was making brisket.
He's doing some bratwurst and some baby bats.
That's good. I mean, it's very daring of the Yankees to put two more ex-Cubs on their roster. That was always a thing. Was that a Royko thing? Is he the one who came up with the ex-Cub factor? He would go through. All the contending teams, and the more ex-Cubs you had, the less likely you were to win. Yeah. Aaron Boone is flirting with disaster.
It really does sound like a Royko thing. Now I gotta go look up.
I think it was the ex-Cub factor. There's not a lot of it. Otherwise, I'm sure there's a lot of middle relievers who bounced around a million teams, but the Yankees, I think, have the most prominent ones now. I don't think I'm forgetting. Jason Hayward's gone. He's not a Dodger.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
I don't know. The Mets they still have Brooks Raley wandering out of their bullpen. Every once in a while, I'll look up. It's like, wait a minute, how are some of these guys still playing? I don't understand it.
Brooks Raley, Luke Raley. Well, the Yankees do have Scott F. Ross in the minors. He definitely counts. But
and the Mets McGill is the old Cub, right? Or is he the Brewers McGill?
I don't remember. I don't
even know.
Yankees got Mark Leiter Jr., of course. And
that's right. Is he on the roster? He was terrible.
I can't. Okay, that's not an asterisk. I can't. Let's see. That's a 40 man. Let's see. He wasn't on the last round.
Yeah.
Not on this round either.
Oh,
it seems like Luke Weaver should have played for the Cubs, but I don't think he did.
He will eventually. When he finally flames out as a closer, then the Cubs will make him their closer.
Right.
I think Austin Wells is the son of Randy and Kip. So one Cub, one White Sox. Yeah, Glaber. I forgot Glaber. Has he count? Has he never got played for the big league? I think it does. He got instructed by the Cubs taught him how to play. It's amazing that he can do anything.
I'm counting.
Yeah, and then So I wonder, is Stroman going to get a start then? I would think.
Schmidt, Rodon, excuse me, Cole. Maybe with the matchups, maybe Stroman versus Gill, a decision there. It would be that.
Yeah. The guy I get a kick out of on their pitching staff is Tim Hill.
Yeah.
Who looks like he ought to be pitching. It looks like he should be leaving his glove on the mound for the other pitcher to use. Like he's that old. He somehow reminds me of a former Cub, Bob Patterson.
Yeah.
Who was it's the blonde mustache, I think. And the thing he was most famous for was because the Cubs made a huge he had to be hairy, but the broadcast at the time would make a big out of the fact that Bob fixed everybody's gloves.
Yes.
If you broke
That's
your glove, you gave it to Bob Patterson. And they would show him sometimes working on a glove in the dugout. That was like great. If Arnie got a whiff of that, there were like 4 cameras pointed at Bob. They weren't even showing the game at that point. They were just watching him, string rawhide through a mitt.
With that not latchkey. What was it called? I don't know. But that tool that you use to make the latch rugs in 7th grade. It's the same looking thing.
I had one because I had my glove broke, and my dad decided instead of going and getting a new one, we could just fix it. And he went out and bought the stuff, and we jacked around with it, and it would work for I'd catch about 6 balls, and then the 7th would go right through the webbing and hit me right in the face. And I'd cry. He'd be like, "You're 38 years old. You could probably stop crying. What do you need a glove for anyway? You don't even play softball anymore. What are you doing?" "I don't know, Dad. Give me a new one." He's like, "You're a grown man. Go get your own glove." "Fine."
I need to see a glove doctor too. I wonder what Bob Patterson's doing.
I don't know. I guess he's fixing gloves somewhere in his spare time. What do we think about the? Well, first, did you learn anything? Pick up any nuggets from your Royals-Yankees excursion?
The Yankees have really good defense. I mean, not just John Birdie making plays at first base, but they're pretty good at catching the ball. That's certainly what Volpe does. He doesn't. I don't know about hitting, but although he's increased his. I saw a stat today. Mike Petriello, I think. Volpe's been like at the low end of bat speed all season, and then in the playoffs, he's increased it by like 30%.
Oh, he's corking. He's corking.
That speed, that's not maybe because the bat slider. Yeah. I don't. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's going. The ball's going anywhere really, but
that's true.
Jazz Chisholm plays a pretty good. I don't know what his metrics are, but I mean, that's another thing. Going back to your not theory about Birdie playing first, but Chisholm is like a natural shortstop that they moved to second and then center. So why couldn't he play third? And he's doing fine over there.
Yeah,
he's also stirring a lot of shit up.
I was gonna. Why was he getting booed all the time? What did I miss?
He called the Royals lucky. Oh. I mean, he said a lot of things. He did one of those things where after the Yankees lost an early game in the series, game 2, he's like, well, this happened and that happened. And, he was like trying to pump his own guys up, but he added at the end, basically the Royals were lucky for winning the game. Yeah. And then, they made him repeat it a few times. It's like, is this what you really mean to say, Jazz? And so that was, I don't know if you could back that up statistically, but of course that's what everybody gathered. And, hey, let's find a reason to boo the guy in the Yankees uniform, like Robinson Cano once upon a time when he didn't pick Billy Butler for the home run derby and when they had the All-Star game in Kansas City. Yeah. That, I wouldn't call it a wound, but people were ready to get on Jazz. And there probably are other reasons why they're ready to get on Jazz, but I don't want to say them out loud. So that's what that was. And then in the game, it was a very strange moment. There was a play at second. This was in the deciding game where Michael Garcia had kind of a late slide. I think it was called late.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it was that late.
No.
But it was like really wide of second. He didn't go at Volpe at all. And Volpe, I don't know if Volpe did it on purpose, but he like gave him a forearm.
Yeah, right to the collarbone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it seemed so blatant that it couldn't have been I was like, well, are you like trying to hold yourself up because you weren't expecting him to be there, or were you being dirty, or I don't know. And Jazz got on the runner about that, and so did Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole said, I didn't like him going after my shortstop like that. And I don't know that he did, but that was their interpretation. Okay. So that more booze for Jazz because he was very animated about it and in the middle of it. So that was clearing non-fight.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was weird because Michael didn't seem he wasn't happy about it, but he didn't do anything. He just was turning and started to run back to the dugout, and then it looked like initially on TV that he and Volpe were yelling at each other, and then you realized he's starting to run off the field, and Jazz is yelling at him, and then he turned to yell at Jazz, and that's what started the whole thing.
Well, and Cole, Garrett Cole said he was yelling at him.
Yeah.
Too. So I think it was like multiple guys.
I'm very confused. Matt Quattraro, did I say that right?
Yes.
I'm older than he is.
Oh.
And he doesn't look, I don't like looking older. I don't like being older than a guy who looks like as old as he looks.
Well, he's got those, sideburn gray things.
Yeah.
Not when he's not on TV, he doesn't look that old.
Okay. So it's kind of like the Mike Schilt thing where I thought he was bald till he took his hat off.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like he's got like a balding white head of hair. And he doesn't, right?
Mike Schilt looks like a Mike Judge character from a cartoon that didn't make it.
My favorite Mike Schilt moment in the playoffs was during the kerfuffle in the outfield in Dodger Stadium, when he ran out to talk to the umpire, and while he was talking to the umpire, he was holding his lineup card over his mouth. It's like, Mike, I don't think you need to hide what you're saying to
like Dan Campbell at an Applebee's.
Yeah, right. They're going to steal your order. It's like, all right, put it down. Maybe it's just habit at this point, but it's like, why are you hiding? We know what you're saying. Hey, those fucking assholes are throwing shit at my players. We might as well let the world see what you're saying. He's out there, he's 300 feet away from his own dugout, covering his mouth with this little half sheet of paper, too. It's like, you get a bigger piece of paper then if you're going to do that.
Or use your hat so we can see your bald head.
Or you prove to the world you're not bald. Everyone would be amazed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they wouldn't focus on what you're saying. It's like, wow, look at all that hair on Mike Schilt. He's really only like 37.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it, though.
Oh, well. But yeah, then over in the Guardians and the Tigers. Tigers got a 1-0 lead in Game 5 with Scooby Dooble on the mound. He thought, oh, it's over. I think the Guardians thought it was over. And then all of a sudden, it's 5-1. They tried to give it back, but they couldn't.
Right. Just a few too many runs. It was Lane Thomas, he's I wouldn't say strung together a couple hits because it's not a string. It's like some interrupted dots. He's gotten a few crumbs after for a while not doing jack for weeks.
Yep.
So,
well,
it's Guardians kind of year.
He hit a 3-run homer in Game 1.
Yeah. And
then the Guardians didn't score. They got him up like 7-0. Right. And then they didn't score again for like 3 games. It's very reminiscent of the Cubs and the Dodgers in 2016, where the Cubs won Game 1. They tried to give it away. Aroldis blew the lead, but then Miguel Montero hit the grand slam.
Yeah.
And they just didn't score in Game 2 or 3. And we didn't think they were ever going to score again. And then Magic Ben Zobrist's bunt in Game 4 turned the entire series around. And it's odd to see these long stretches where, and not for the Guardians though. It's kind of you kind of feel like unless it's Jose Ramirez, you feel like a miracle when they drive in a run of any kind.
Yeah.
But there they are.
Was Jackenzie Noel gotten anything on the board lately? I don't know. He's played defense in right field shockingly well. I didn't.
Yeah.
He made a couple of really athletic plays. I guess he was a third baseman at one time, which I would love to see the video. Can't imagine it.
Yeah, when I first saw him batting, I thought Franmil Reyes had simply gotten in shape.
They need a new Franmil. That's what
I'm like, good for Franmil. Oh, it's not Franmil. And how do you say that name? It looks like an eye chart.
Yeah, it's like very Caribbean.
What's the Johnny Peralta way of spelling John? Jhon.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got Kensy or EY wedged in there too.
Joel Kensy, Kensy, I think.
Yeah, I heard a little of Game 5. I was in the car when the game started, so I flipped over. I was listening to Tom Hamilton do the Guardians call. I knew you just count down. Within 30 seconds, he was going to say something about being at the corner of Carnegie and I don't remember the other street now.
Yeah,
he says it 15 times a game, but he's good. I like Tom. And he was getting very excited. But I don't hold out much hope because I do root for the Guardians for familial reasons, even though I've never met those Dolans.
Right.
But also, I feel like that in the old days, I would probably have been like, the Cubs need another team with a long World Series drought, so it doesn't feel quite as terrible. But it's over, and the Guardians / Indians are carrying the biggest one around.
Right.
I'd be more than happy for them to shed it, but that's not happening this year. I don't think.
I mean, I've picked against them all year, and I will continue to. But I guess it's just one of those things where it adds up to you would think at some point they're going to run out of, that thing where Lane Thomas hits a home run and they don't score for 3 games. And that will come back to get them eventually. And I thought a couple times, Tim Herron, their left-handed pitcher, he looks shaky, or Clase's throwing flat sliders, or how many times can you use Hagrid under Gaddis in a row? But they haven't died yet, so.
No. So I'll be pulling for them, but even though I think it's a lost cause. I don't think the Yankees are that good. I mean, they're not bad. No. But I also feel like I really worry if I have the Guardians that Alex Cobb is going to help awaken Aaron Judge from his postseason slumber.
Judge is he seems on the verge. I mean, he's not stinging the ball absolutely every time, but he had several really hard hits, like 115 miles an hour hard in the Royals series. So he could be on the verge. It's almost sort of reminds me a little bit of Barry Bonds at some point. Bonds was a bad postseason player for the first few series, and then the 2002 World Series happened. Some other things happened between his first series and then, but
he got more into fitness.
Right. He got a big head about himself.
He got a bigger hat and bigger shoes, which always happens in your 30s, and then off he went. He was finally able to hit. So that's Dodgers Yankees World Series would be fine. There'll be all this nostalgia, and it has to go back to the 70s again. It's like or the early 80s. Yeah, bring him in. I don't need a Subway Series. I don't. That's way too much. That's way too much New York for me.
Obnoxious.
We lived through one of those. We don't need any more of those. So,
although the Mets are, they're entertaining enough. They have lots of their side shows and singing players and OMG and
yeah. If they weren't the Mets, I would be enjoying them more.
Yeah.
They did me a favor. They got rid of the Brewers. That was fun. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they're still the Mets, and I grew up hating them.
Right.
And it just kicks in. And I don't like the Dodgers, but the Cubs won a pennant against the Dodgers, so I have a little affection for them and their their postseason struggles, so that's fine.
I don't know how you couldn't like or be interested in Shohei, although people find ways. And I like Mookie Betts, and yeah, I mean, I'm not like a huge Freddie Freeman fan, but I find he's very. It's reminding me a little of Kirk Gibson, I guess. He looks to be in a lot of pain and is playing anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, we could have a World Series matchup with one guy playing on one foot and one guy with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then I'm sure every Cub fan will remind people that Anthony Rizzo has pitched to Freddie Freeman once in his career, and he struck him out. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe somehow in the World Series, they'll have to go to Rizzo to pitch, and he'll strike out Freddie Freeman again. I would watch that. I'd like to see the chaos that would have to happen for that to happen in an actual important moment. This happened right after I think we recorded last time. The Cincinnati Reds hired a new manager. Did we talk about Terry Francona? I don't remember.
It might have happened like just as we were. I think it did. Yeah, that was last week. So.
Oh, we did talk about it. Okay,
we did.
Yeah. But the Cubs are still making moves. They no longer have they don't have a base coach anymore. They fired their first base coach and they fired their third base coach. And that's fine because they're not planning having any base runners, so it won't matter. Why pay for superfluous people? And the first base coach's real job, as we know, is simply to wear the extra equipment from the base runner. So you got to put hand you the shin guard, you put that like on your forearm, and then if you get a second guy's got one, and by the end of if it's a big inning, by the end of it, you look like a goalie because you have all this equipment on, and you come lumbering in.
Also, here are your oven mitts.
That's right. Is there a rule about how long? Is there a maximum length of those oven mitts?
I'm ashamed to say I don't know.
Could you make one that's like 80 feet long and just reach over and touch the bag? Safe.
That's my kind of question, Andy. I like that.
Because some of them are freakishly long.
They are. It's like, what kind of cookies are you baking, buddy?
That would be quite a move. Somebody should at least try it in a game. It takes three bat boys to haul it out and help him put it on, and then he just reaches over with it. He knocks the second baseman over trying to get to the bag.
The clown
Look,
glove.
I'm on first and second at the same time. Woo! That's right. Willie Harris, the third base coaches are always polarizing because you only notice them when they send a runner to their demise. There's very few little, what an amazing send by the third base coach. You don't get a lot of that.
Right.
Willie, the only thing that bothered me about Willie was I found the lay on your belly to try to convince the guy to slide into third thing performative and dumb.
Right.
It's
certainly counterintuitive.
Yes.
It's like maybe he's got a secret that we don't know. Maybe it's the curve of the field or something makes it okay, but it doesn't seem like it would be okay.
It's like if you round second and you can't see me, assume you should run to third and slide because I'm in the grass. And then before the renovations at Wrigley, the third baseline used to really slope down into the dugout.
Yeah.
So Willie, I think he wouldn't see him at all, or he might literally slide into the dugout.
Right.
Like, where's Willie? Why is he in the dugout? Well, he tried to lay on his belly and he slid in like he was, like he was sliding down a hill in the winter.
You'd think that alone, I don't know if Kyrie Irving watches baseball, but that proves the curvature of the earth.
That's right. There's a rumor in Chicago now that connects Willie Harris's availability with a possible new manager of the Chicago White Sox. The idea is the White Sox would hire David Ross to be their manager.
Oh my God.
And Willie Harris.
You made that up just now.
I didn't make it up. I read it and laughed. Because number one, it would be a terrible choice. And number two, if I'm David Ross, why would you take that job? Why would you do it? Like, no, of course not.
There is no other job to take.
I would wait. I wouldn't take that one. Even if I'm not getting a job this year, I would wait. I'd be like, nope. The longer I'm out, the more people will think I was good. and I don't have to take a White Sox job. I can take another year off. He's growing hair now. I don't know if you've seen that.
What do you mean?
Rossi's got a head of hair.
Maybe he has Mike Schultz hair.
He looks like, do you remember the Seinfeld where Elaine was dating the guy who shaved his head?
Yeah.
And she saw his driver's license photo, and she was amazed at the the luxurious like locks he had, and she convinced him to grow his hair back. And it'd been 3 years. George was very offended by the fact that a guy with hair was shaving his head. Basically, it's like riding a wheelchair for the fun of it. I believe was George's.
Yes. Which he did.
And when his hair, he started growing it back, and over the 3 years he had his head shaved, he didn't realize he was starting to go bald. And it's that what is his name? He's in everything. It's like, is it John Michael Higgins? Is that his name? He's in a bunch of like the Christopher Guest movies.
David Letterman and The Late Show.
Yes, that's who's playing. Who actually does have a full head of hair? So clearly they had to like shave the horseshoe pattern into his head as his stubble started to come in. But Ross looks like if that guy had kept growing his hair back, that's what Ross's hair looks like. It's still way too high in the front, and he's got a bald spot in the back, but he's got hair, and he's letting it grow. And if you ever see him on Instagram or if people are putting his pictures out, there's old Rossi. He's got hair now, which will make him look much more marketable as a manager. Kind of Mike Schilt. He wants to look more like Mike Schilt, so he's growing his hair back. That'll convince people to hire him. I thought Ross was going to get the Reds job, and he didn't because they went and got a good manager instead.
Another guy without hair.
Yeah, I don't think if Tito tried to let it grow back, I don't think anything's coming. I think he's out.
Not since the 80s.
But so the interesting thing to me is when the Cubs hired Counsell, it was November 8th last year. And the stated reason why he didn't hire any coaches was it was too late. Too late to hire coaches. Do you know when Carlos Mendoza of the Mets got hired last year? The exact same day. He somehow managed to fill an entire coaching staff. Apparently it wasn't too late. Well, here we are now, the middle of October, and Counsell has fired a big chunk of his staff. And he hasn't hired anybody yet. So I just assume it'll be too late, and the Cubs will be, you can't hire anybody. It's too late. So it'd be like one of the split squad spring training games where they'll just have players who either aren't playing or are not likely to bat. Will go out and coach the bases for the Cubs. What a terrible send there by Nico Horner. What was he thinking? He's thinking, why am I coaching third base? I'm the second baseman. I'm busy.
I kind of wondered what it would be like if Juan Soto called his own balls and strikes, and I like that idea actually.
Would he still do that? His ball signal would be cool. He would just do the slide. I remember the first time I saw him do that. The Cubs had just gotten the Nationals had cut Brandon Kinsner.
Kinsner?
Oh,
Andrew Neisner? No.
Andrew. What did I call him?
Salt. Andrew Kinsner, I think.
Kinsner. The guy they called Salt. Because he was...
Okay.
And his first game after the Nationals was against the Nationals. And he came in to face Soto, and he threw a ball, and Soto did that like real aggressive, slide towards... And I'm like, holy cow, he must hate him. Look at this. He's showing him out. And then he did it again.
Right.
And I'm like, man, no, he wasn't asked. They heard the players, a lot of the players didn't like it. Well, it turns out, no, that was just the first time I'd seen that Soto does that pretty much every time. And I remember thinking he was like mad at him. Like, woo, I guess they do have beef. I don't know if they did or not, but that wasn't why he was doing it. Yeah, it would be interesting if baseball, maybe that's the thing they should try. Call your own balls and strikes. Kind of like tennis. Even college tennis, where you just call your own, whether it's in or out,
right? Which
does lead to fights once in a while, which is always kind of fun. A lot of screaming and skinny little tennis players threatening each other and slamming their rackets around. Put them on the honor system just try it for a series. It'll be fun. They got rid of Players Weekend, where they used to put the hilarious nicknames on the backs
They
of their
kind
jerseys.
of brought it back.
Just
kind
shoes, right? They let them do whatever they want with their shoes now instead.
Yeah, and they like did a yearbook or something. I don't know, some kind of half-assed thing.
But they'd already loosened the shoe thing up so much it really didn't matter, right?
That's true.
Like it wasn't that long ago. You had every team had to have like the Cubs wore blue. You had to have blue shoes, and then some teams had black.
That's why they call it a uniform.
Yes, that's right. Everything has to be uniform.
Well, I remember, if I can go into Costas mode for a second, like at the All-Star game, players used to love, we get to wear white shoes or
white shoes, yep. Yeah, I think there were probably players who signed with the A's because they thought it would be cool to wear white shoes. Sure, I'll play for you guys. And when the Haas family owned them, they were actually paying money. So, you could go there. And I always thought, it would suck to get gotten traded to the Padres, and now you got to wear brown shoes. Ugh.
I like the look. I'm sorry.
They all wear their. They all wear yellow, and some of those are actually kind of cool looking. So
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like some of the red teams wore black. Cardinals have wore red. Maybe the Reds wore black for a while, and then they finally went red. But it was like a big deal. And when the team did it, then all the players you had to switch your shoes. And then when we get traded, you had to can just wear your other. You gotta get the right color shoe. It's pretty stupid.
The Angels wore red shoes in the '80s. So the Carew, Bobby Grich, Reggie Jackson Angels. That was nice, and the White Sox copied that. So when Jerry Dybzinski was running around third to wherever, he was wearing
red shoes, his clown shoes, distracted himself. He just kept running. But yeah, so see, it'll be very exciting who Craig hires. There is the Astros fired Gary Pettis. Apparently, he was the reason they got swept by the Tigers.
That's a Chicago baseball World Series champion with the White Sox. So bring him in coach first. And
his son, until recently, was playing for the Bears.
Right. I didn't realize that until he was almost gone.
Yeah. Well, Dante was almost gone like 3 years in a row. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, he's back? How? Yeah. It's like, did they just need somebody? He just moved into the area and they'll call it like Sunday morning, Gary or Dante, we're down a receiver. Do you want to suit up? Sure, I'll come play. He had to change numbers because every time they deactivate him, somebody else would steal his number and he'd have to pick a new one. So he wore I think he wore at least 3 different numbers for the Bears. I think he was 18, 81, and maybe 86. But now him and his dad can finally spend a little quality time. They both have time off.
There you go.
It is funny though. There were Cub fans very upset about Mike Napoli getting fired because Boog had told everybody what a good base running coach he was, and that was why the Cubs improved base running. It's like how do you quantify that? You really can't. I don't think. I mean, unless he's really good at yelling, "Get back!" when he thinks the pitcher's going to throw over.
He's instinctive that way. I know Fangraphs has a base running stat that is like, well, how many extra bases did they take? And how do you determine that exactly? I don't know. But also like caught stealings and stolen bases and all that. So there's an attempt made. I don't know how accurate it is to gauge.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you attribute that to the first base coach?
The coach?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess he's technically the base running coach.
Yeah.
Which I think means for like 2 days in spring training, he runs you through the drills.
Well,
and then he can do. All right. So you ready to be base running coach again for the next 2 days? Sure. All right. Good.
He was a catcher once upon a time, not a very good one, but
he's also
that could be where that skill comes from. But.
Yeah. He was the ultimate. He was the coach because him and Ross were pals.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt like when Craig got control of the coaching staff that he would probably change that. Not that it means Napoli's a horse's ass or anything, but of all the coaches, I felt like that was Ross's guy.
Yeah.
And you probably don't need Ross's guy on your staff. Again, you can get your own guy. I don't know if he has any. They're all still in Milwaukee, but he's got to have something. All right. Well, the LCS should be fun, I guess. I haven't had a little. Yeah,
the ratings were up so far.
Well, it's not going to hurt having 2 New York teams and
that too.
One in each of those, and the Dodgers are.
Viewership for the postseason is up 18% versus last year, according to this graphic I'm reading.
Yeah, that was mostly because of the Tigers, I think.
Well, ALDS Game 5 on TBS between the Guardians and Tigers was the most watched division series game on any network, starting in its day game window. Pre 4 p.m. in 17 years.
Well, they proved me wrong. I think you were the one who explained why the game was starting at noon. That's because they were worried the later start it was going to rain.
Yes.
But I felt it was just like, okay, this is Cleveland, Detroit. What time can you guys get here tomorrow? We can just get this over with. I don't think we make it till noon. All right, we're starting at noon then. Bring your stuff. Bring your bats, because we're not waiting. We're going to get started. And it was a good game. It was fun. One thing I was going to mention. So we've got 3 of the 4 teams in the Final Four who had the bye. They survived the bye. Is that going to calm down the panicky? Those teams always lose since
people were going crazy after like the first game of the series. Like, oh no, but it's sitting around for all this time and all that. So, and maybe they weren't wrong to a degree that there was some rust, but yeah, it's not. It's better to. It's just regardless of like what you're doing it's better to get through a round without having to play.
Yes,
I would just say that.
Yep.
So
injuries heal up. You get your pitching staff in order.
And you don't risk losing. You have nothing to lose, literally.
Right. It should be an advantage. They talked about it early in Game 4 when I think Smoltz and Davis both thought the Padres were going to win. They were at least win the series. And so they were talking about how... And we also haven't had this format for that long. This is the 4th year of it, the 3rd?
I got to go back to my graphic.
But every time the division rivals had met in this format, it had been a first-place team against a second-place team, and the second-place team had won every single series. And it looked like the Padres were going to keep that streak going, and then they didn't. The Dodgers were the first time the first-place team beat the second-place team in the playoffs. And so that got them talking about what could you do to make it even bigger advantage. And we've seen ridiculous stuff like the team with the bye starts up 1-0. Let's have a non-competitive win. That would be fun. Let's just do that in the playoffs.
Did the players suggest that? I remember that suggestion being floated. I can't imagine they would suggest it.
No. But I think Smoltz had the best answer, and that was if you made that round 4 out of 7. Because what happens is the team with the layoff tends to lose that first game. And in 3 out of 5, you've given home field advantage up, and now you're just you're 2 losses away from going home.
Right.
And it's easy in any round in any sport. It's easier for the inferior team to pull the upset if they don't have to win. The more games they have to win, the less likely they are to upset the other team.
Right.
And so if you go to 4 out of 7 in that round, then losing that first game is not as big a deal if it happens. But even if it does, it also, I think, the wear and tear from playing the round before would show itself up more in a 4 out of 7.
Right.
Like you've used more pitchers and now you've got to use them. You got to use them again. You got to win 4 games. You got to get through this stuff. And I'd be all for that. I don't think the TV networks would be all that wild about 4 out of 7. But when we were growing up, the LCS was 3 out of 5.
Right.
And then they finally decide, and then you got a lot of upsets, like the Padres over the Cubs, which I don't think would have happened if that had been 4 out of 7. They would have gone back to Wrigley, and the Cubs would have.
Well, I mean, they certainly
resumed thumping them, and they would have gone to the World Series. And it's all.
They literally would have had a chance to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't know if the Red Sox beat the Angels if it's 4 out of 7. Although Gene Mauch was so cursed That
It was bound to happen anyway.
Yeah. But some of the cool upsets we remember probably might not. Well, most likely wouldn't have lasted the. Oh shit! We still have to win another game. I mean, a good example of that is the Cleveland wins the World Series. If 2016 is 3 out of 5, not 4 out of 7. The Red Sox never win in 2004 because they get swept.
Yeah.
So. All right, but anyway, we got. There's only one. It's that National League 6 seed, which is a highway to the World Series, and they're the only ones left. The Phillies used it, the Diamondbacks used it, the Mets are trying to use it. That's why that's the seed the Cubs want. They try to build their whole roster around that. We don't want to. No, we want to be the 6th seed. That's you go to the World Series if you're the 6th seed. We can't get too good. We'll miss it. Right. So that's what they're trying. All right. Well, enjoy the games.
You as well, and you out there as well in listener land.
Many of us have herpes.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.